Hello. I came across this article. John Lewis boss calls for Royal Commission to save UK high streets. This is in The Guardian, but it's appeared in a couple of other newspapers as well. Sharon White says 6,000 shops have closed over the past 5 years and rethink is needed. Well, a Royal Commission. You don't need a Royal Commission to know what's happened to the high streets. And it strikes me that a Royal Commission is just a way for a group of entitled elite can pretend they've got a job and earn themselves some spare cash. Look, I'll do this for free, okay? 1. Councils are gouging businesses on business rates. 2. Councils are gouging businesses on rubbish collection. 3. Councils are gouging businesses on parking. What else do I have here? 4. Governments are gouging businesses on business taxes. 5. Insurance companies are gouging business on insurance. And 6. The police aren't doing their job, stopping shoplifters or arresting them when they're caught by the staff because the police aren't there to catch them. Under that sort of an assault, how do you expect businesses to thrive? You don't need a Royal Commission. You need to stop all these taxes. You need to stop all these restrictions. You need to let people live and breathe. And if that means your town centre is a bit chaotic, well, that's the only way things work. The boss of John Lewis has called for a Royal Commission review into the UK's ailing high streets, arguing that mass store closures, crime and antisocial behaviour are blighting Britain's town centres. Yeah, there won't be any town centres to speak of. And then where are the councils going to get their money from? Because those town centres are going to get colonised by people who don't pay taxes or rates or insurance or council dues or even rubbish collection. That's what's going to happen. What else do I have in my notes? Yeah, I want to, well, before I carry on with a little bit more about this, I shall just tell you, I am Grannyopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds, also Twitter and Gab, and all the links are in the description. Also links to donation sites if you want to use them. I've had some very generous donations recently, and for that reason I might be able to get myself a new camera now, but that's another point. Donations are always welcome, but really what you can do to help, if you don't want to or can't donate, no problem, just click that like button. That helps the spread of my video and of course helps my channel. All right, let's carry on. So I'm going to talk about big businesses now. You know, I was about to say just before I gave my station identification that the problem is the small shops are going to close down and then you'll just get the big shops. But even the big shops are closing down now. It's just become too expensive. A few years ago, there was a small single man owned jewellers in our local shopping area, and he closed down. And he closed down because he said people used to just jump in to get a watch strap repaired or something like that. But then when they introduced the parking restrictions, nobody stopped there. So he was reduced to selling big stuff. I mean, you know, reduced in the sense of the customer base. And there just weren't enough people buying, I don't know, what, gold bracelets or Georgian tea sets in the neighbourhood to warrant, and there was nothing else to keep him going. Well, he closed down and then there was some sort of chain took it over. But now even the chains are closing down because as the chains have come in and people are the council needs more and more money, they think, oh, well, we've got a Next here or a Marks and Spencer's or whatever. We can charge them what we like because they'll just pass the stuff on to the customers and they don't care. And bit by bit, those shops are closing down as well because there is only so much you can take from people before they stop playing your game. Now, and this is not in the area where I used to live, but in many areas it's leading to a lot of shuttered up shops or, pop-up charity shops or whatever. And of course, that makes the town centre just not worth going to anymore, or even threatening, depending on the sort of people hanging about outside these places. Now, there is this tendency for bigger and bigger concerns to take over stuff. There's recently our great government have decided to make, I don't know what, gas boilers illegal or oil boilers. I honestly don't know. It's difficult to keep up with them. But the point is that there are a lot of landlords who will be zapped, not with fines, but with prison sentences for not upgrading their properties. Well, a lot of these people can't afford to do that. They are actually just jogging along on the income from their rental properties anyway. They're not, smoking cigars in Marbella or whatever people do when they're earning a lot of money. I suppose my horizons are very low. The point is there are a lot of people who are just scraping by, really, or earning a reasonable but not a princely living off rental properties. They won't be able to afford to do that, so they'll sell up. And these rental properties will eventually end up in the hands of big businesses, great international concerns who don't really care about their customers. They're just there, they have their standard things and then they just take over. Well, they have, because they're big businesses, will have a lot of influence with government or local authorities or whatever, and the situation will not get any better. Yeah, you might have a few landlords who have creaky boilers installed in their flats, or there's some mildew somewhere. I'm not talking about terrible situations, or they don't have double glazing or inside wall insulation on every one of their rooms, and the people there who are renting aren't living the best of lives, but they won't be when these big companies take over either. And these big companies will have policies like you spend 3 weeks without paying your rent, you're out. And they can do that. Whereas a small landlord has a lot more difficulty with that sort of thing. So altogether, in general, things won't be better. And I was thinking of that when I was talking about vets. The vets are now being taken over by big businesses. It used to be the case that you got a local vet, like All Creatures Great and Small and that sort of a vet. And there are 4 quirky partners and they go out and then there's this poor, farmer they know is struggling, so when they come out to deal with one of his prize sheep which might keep his farm going, they don't charge him quite as much as they would for the big commercial farm down the road. Those sorts of people, they are going out of business, and the vets are being taken over by great conglomerates where the vets go in, they sit there in what amounts to an office, they do their job, and then they go home at night with quiet consciences and not worrying about people because somebody else puts the bills in anyway. They don't have that contact with their customers until finally all the one-man operations or the small businesses, they're going to go, and they're going to be these big commercial businesses that don't really care about their customers, and they can put the prices up, and they do that already. Vet bills are getting higher and higher. Everyone's talking about that. And that's what the problem is. And how is this happening? It's happening because of a whole load of things. Legislation about certain sanitary standards, or the sort of hours you can work, or insurance costs which are going up because people have taken to suing anybody, I'm not just talking about vets, that they think aren't providing the right service. And then there are rents for offices and things like that. And the whole system is geared towards destroying the small business and facilitating the big business. And some of them for the best of reasons. For instance, and I'm not disagreeing with this, legislation which says you have to have the boiler serviced every year at the expense of the landlord. Well, that's a reasonable thing. But then telling the landlord, no, you can't have a gas boiler, you have to have a heat source pump. Maybe in a situation where there's an old house that a heat source pump won't actually work that well, that sort of thing is going to drive a landlord out of business. But the problem is it starts with the good legislation, like service your boiler every year so that your tenants don't die of carbon monoxide poisoning, and then it just creeps and it gets more and more extreme. And unless the government can learn to pull back and take the criticism of the newspapers who make their living by criticising, who say, the government says, look, we're staying out of this. And then the newspapers say, oh, look at this poor family. There are 5 to a room. That landlord should be prosecuted for this. And the government saying, no, that's between them and the landlord. And you can complain as much as you like. It's that sort of thing that is causing all this trouble. So when this head of, housing, private landlords, big companies, taxes, insurance, business rates, and media. Right, I've covered all the notes I made. We're not going to solve this problem all that easily, because people are too ready to say, there should be a law, and then actually making a law. And one law piling on another law. And of course, there's all the income tax stuff that doesn't help private businesses, small businesses either. And pretty soon we're going to go back to a barter economy. We are people who can't handle these big business type of things and the taxes, and they're going to end up swapping services just like they did in the old days. I've already seen it happening in the farming world. Right. Well, that's my rant for today. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.